Okay, what?
Is it recording?
What, you don't want to be recorded? It's Speaker's Corner?
Oh, no, okay. I need to leave soon though, yeah.
Alright, okay. Yeah, you know the children of Israel?
Yeah.
Has their role been done away with now, and it's now the Christians who take the place as like God's servants in the world?
I think you're conflating two different things there. Has the role of Israel been taken away? No.
Okay.
So Israel still has a role to play, and God would bring about all the things that He had prophesied He would do
Right.
in regards to Israel before the end. So the role of
Good to see you.
good to see you, Jason.
Keep preaching. I'm always watching you.
Okay, yeah. Good to see you, Jason. Yeah, good.
Give up.
Yes, by God's grace. Yeah. So Israel still has a role, but Christians also have a role.
Right.
Christians have a role as ambassadors for the kingdom of God. As a role. Yeah, Paul speaks about the olive tree where we have been grafted in and so on. So yeah, both are true.
Right. So you know when Jesus spoke to the Luke 4, and he quoted from Isaiah 61. So he read down to, I think it's the first two verses he read, although they obviously didn't have verses in the scrolls, and then he stopped. But then when you read Isaiah 61 and it continues, it tells you the rest of what he's going to do to Israel. So has that been done away with now?
No, that's still to come.
So that restoration part where you read it further on, that's going to happen. Right. So has any of that happened yet?
The things which Jesus hasn't read so far, no.
Right. So basically, what you're saying is that in that Isaiah 61, he still has only.
The remaining portion is about judgment.
Well, there's a lot more to it than that.
The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. And that's where he stopped.
Yeah.
And then the second part is on the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to console those who mourn in Zion, to give them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they may be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that they may be glorified. Hasn't happened yet.
Right.
They shall rebuild the old ruins, they shall raise up the former desolations.
So these parts, would you say that the next part where it says they're building up the old ways and what the strangers should do, etc., and they'll be named priests. So basically, like verse 4, 5, and 6, you say that hasn't happened yet.
Strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the foreigner shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers. No, that hasn't happened.
Right.
For you shall be named the priests of the Lord. They shall call you the servants of our God. Hasn't happened there yet also. You shall eat the riches of the Gentiles. Hasn't happened yet. In their glory you shall boast.
So what you're saying when he says build, they shall build the old ways. So you're saying the state that.
Are you talking about verse 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, for part of verse 4 is happening at the moment.
Part.
Yeah, I mean they're beginning to build, but that's not the entirety of what God is talking about.
So you're saying they've. So you're saying that they're beginning to raise up the former desolations.
No, I am saying they are back, and that in itself is the beginning process of this. So they're back in the land.
Okay, so what you're thinking is that somehow God is going to, because I know I've heard this before, that somehow He'll go over there and make them suddenly be.
Not suddenly. He's going to show up again when the Messiah shows up.
Right.
This is all. Many of these are after the Messiah shows up. Strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, sons of foreigners. You shall be named the priests of the Lord, and so on. Yeah, that's when the temple is there. The third temple is there. Jesus himself will be seated in the temple, and they'll be serving him there, and all the people of all nations coming there to worship him and so on.
Right. So do you think that this restoration it's talking about here, do you think it matches the one which is in Ezekiel 36?
Part of that, yeah. So Ezekiel 36, of course, talks about the third temple, yeah.
Well, no. Well, it just tells you about what's going to happen. It starts from verse. Where is it? Well, you could say it starts from verse 8, but it's a bit long. Well, I suppose a good place to start is like 17. So it says, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land, they defiled it by their own way and by their doings. Their way was before me as the uncleanness of a removed woman. Wherefore I poured my fury upon them for the blood that they had shed upon the land, and for their idols where they had polluted it. And I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed through the countries according to their way and according to their doings. There I judged them, and when they entered unto the heathen whither they went, they profaned my holy name, when they said to them, These are the people of the Lord, and they are gone forth out of this land. So I know the Apostle Paul agrees that this part has happened.
Which one? I will sanctify my great name which has been profaned.
No, where it says they've profaned my holy name. So that's quoted by Paul.
Yeah.
So he's saying that the scattering part has happened. But then when it goes to the next part where it says, You had pity for my holy name, which the house of Israel had profaned, and then it says, just to skip past, if you go to 24, it says, He will take...
24 is happening now.
Right.
25 hasn't happened yet.
Right. So what you're saying is that this is going to be... There's going to be a big gap between 24 and 25.
I didn't say big gap. All I said was 24 is happening now.
Right.
25 hasn't happened yet.
Right.
God hasn't sprinkled cleaned Israel yet.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. So what you're effectively saying is that Israel hasn't been restored yet.
Verse 25 hasn't happened yet. Verse 24 is happening. God is gathering in Israel. Yeah, that is true.
Right. So
the ingathering is beginning to happen. It's already happening.
So what you're saying is that God gathered them.
God is gathering them.
Oh, all right. He's gathering them, put them in the land, and then He allowed them to make brothels in Tel Aviv and have.
They make what?
Brothels.
Brussels.
Where they prostitutes.
Prostitutes, where prostitutes.
Oh, brothels.
Yeah. And then they have now having gay pride as well, and apparently it's the second biggest, I think, in the world.
And that's why I'm saying they're not clean yet.
Right, but
25 is where they're clean.
So
24 is currently they're just physically there, physically being gathered. For I will take you, and that's why He says, "You have profaned my name." God's name has been profaned even now. Is that the guy we spoke to the other day? The guy. I think he's gone. God is gathering them in.
So for what it sounds like is that okay. So you could say that He started gathering them from the 30s, and then in the 48 after the war, that's when they came in en masse from Europe. But then, since then, it's as if they've been gradually getting worse. So is that part of the plan as well? Because as far as I know, the brothels weren't, and gay pride weren't. Well, I don't think gay pride wouldn't have been happening in 1948 because someone would have been going around with a machete or something. So why is it God's plan involves bringing the real people into the land and then allowing them to sit there and get worse?
No, them getting worse is not God's plan.
Right.
Them coming in is God's plan. When they come in, they're just being who they are, which is all sorts of different ideas which are there, and God is intending to clean them later.
So what? So could it be possible then that maybe they're not the actual right ones, and that's the reason why.
This is just that's just a bubble that you live in. That's
Huh?
just a bubble that you live in.
So,
That's just a bubble you live in.
but why do you think they're the correct people?
Because in all of history, there is no reason to think that we have lost track of who the true Israel is. There is no reason to think so. There's no historical basis to even claim. Oh, we don't know who true Israel is today. Oh, so the 10 tribes, yes, but the Jews, we don't know who true Jews are today. That's just a bollocks
But
point.
but there is an easy way to work it out.
No,
You- all right.
no. That doesn't have historical credibility. Doesn't even have historical foundation in place. No. So
Yeah.
that is not something I would even consider. Not at all.
Well, so when the Romans invaded,
No. I have told you. I don't want any opinion on that. I have told you what I have thought.
so
There is no historical basis whatsoever to think today we don't even know who true Jews are. There is no historical basis. So I'm not even going to discuss on that. No.
so basically the Romans
I don't want to
invaded,
even discuss on
and
that.
all the Jews escaped up to Europe. That's what you feel happened from the direction the Romans were coming. Do you feel that's what happened?
Jews went all over the place.
But they mostly went up towards where the Romans were coming from.
I didn't say that. They went
But-
all over the place.
Oh, so you feel some of them went south as well?
All over the place.
Okay, so then when 1948, why weren't there ships coming from the south and bringing them as well into Israel?
Sorry,
Why were all the ships coming from Europe bringing them into Israel?
why were they? Because they are Jews also. What's the problem there?
Yeah, but you said they were scattered all places, including the south.
Yeah, there are
Yeah.
people from the south also, or people from Ethiopia who went back there and so on. People
But-
from India going back there, all
And
sorts of places.
that happened in 1948.
In 19, it happened in stages. I don't know the
The
exact
prophecy
dates.
doesn't say 1948.
I'm not talking
No,
about
oh.
1948 in particular.
Over a period of time. It's
Over a
not.
period of time.
Well,
It's, the going back is still happening. So if you're talking about a past event, I'm repeatedly insisted on saying it is still happening. It is still happening. And between 1948 and today, I don't know the exact dates. There are Jews from Ethiopia. There are Jews from India. There are Jews from all over the place who've gone back.
Yeah, but that's what I find strange is that you've got Africa, which is attached to where Israel is, and then
I really don't want to enter into funny.
But-
We are attached and therefore
but
we are
it's-
them and
but it's
such
not,
arguments.
But you
at
notice
all.
it's not funny though. It's actually
No,
a
when I
serious
say
thing.
funny, what I mean is baseless, having no credibility in history, just fantasy ideas being propagated as things that we ought to discuss. That
But-
to me is funny.
Right. So you don't think it's fantasy that most of the Jews ended up in Europe,
Not
which is
talking
further.
about most, less,
no, but
none.
so
what-
that's less fantasy. It's less fantastical that they'd end up in Europe than
In history,
being
let
in,
me please repeat this. In
Right.
history, in human history, there is no reason whatsoever to even consider the possibility that we have lost track of who Jews are.
Right.
That is not even something to be considered.
But
Not even. I really don't want to enter into that discussion. Now, but maybe this guy is a Jew. Maybe you should consider that. Or maybe that guy. It's just illogical. Like, I don't want to even waste time on that.
but you happily believe what the government say.
No. I have told you precisely my basis for saying what I have said, which is in human history, there is no reason to say that we have lost track of who the true Jews are. There is no basis whatsoever.
So what about the Bible then? Would you believe the Bible over history?
Bible is consistent with history. I'm talking about post 70 AD. Bible doesn't talk about post 70 AD. So I don't know why you bring the Bible.
All right. So I'll bring what God has to say.
No. I don't want to.
We have to go.
Yeah, we have to leave
So-
leave in a bit. No, I really
what-
don't know. This is just.
I'll just read one verse from the Bible. So So you don't want to.
Also, the thing is, you coming with one question after another. If you'd say your argument is this is my argument, and these are my evidences for my argument, instead
Okay,
of going
well-
around and this and
well,
that, and that, so you don't think that this and that.
No,
Just come straight and say, this is what I think, and my basis on.
Yeah, I was about to read it for you. So this is Isaiah 11 and 11.
First of all, I don't understand what you're trying to. You're going
What?
to read something, but I don't understand what your argument is.
Oh, this will enlighten I'll say what the argument is after I read this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going, as you know, we're going.
Yeah, it's just one verse. I mean, it's not that hard.
Going to be, the Bible says that Israel are dark in color.
No. Let's just read what the Bible says. As Isaiah 11. Actually, start from 10. It's only one other verse. And in that day, there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people, to which shall the Gentiles seek, and the rest shall be glorious. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. So basically, what my point is that this doesn't describe a large group of people coming in ships from Europe. It doesn't describe that.
Okay. I would take the verse and try to read it and study and see other things, but I won't just because of that verse accept your argument.
Yeah, but this disagrees with the politics and with the what do you call them, scholars. So the scholars try to say it's the Europeans from Germany are the children of Israel. The Bible says something different. What I just read. That's my point.
What you just read is essentially God bringing from some nations.
Yeah.
It's not talking about all the nations from where God brings.
Yeah.
At a specific point in time, if you read.
But the point is, you won't find Europe there. That's my point. And we know that the Caribbeans are in the islands of the sea, and we know where Cush is.
Islands of the sea is just Caribbean.
Yeah, but it's not Germany. That's my point. You won't find Europe in here. You can read that.
So let's read. It shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros. I don't know what Pathros is. And from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the islands of the sea. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations, and shall assemble the outcasts of Israel, and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, four corners. So he is going to gather from all over the place, out of which some nations he explicitly mentions.
Yes. So
No,
those.
no. No. This is crystal clear. God is going to bring Judah from all over the place. Some of those nations are listed here.
And
So that's
yet,
it.
and yet,
You haven't read. You seem to have spent much time in reading that, but didn't even progress to the next verse. That's very. Either you were deceptive.
huh?
You didn't read the second verse. Why did you earlier?
So it says something about Germans.
Well, all over the world, yeah. Is Germany in the world?
No, but those.
Is Germany in the world?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so it's included. Yeah, Germany,
Yeah, but
France, Italy, all over the world, yeah.
but why didn't they come from these nations which are mentioned? That's the point.
No, they have come from those nations. Yeah, there are Jews who have come
Yeah,
from.
but the majority were Europeans.
No. It doesn't. This doesn't give you the proportion of who came from where. There are Jews who have come from Iraq. There are Jews who have come from Egypt. There are Jews. There are still Jews in Egypt even today. There are Jews who have come from Cush. There are Jews who have come from. Where is that?
Yeah, but they
I
came.
don't know where Patmos is.
But aren't they the ones who are getting treated not so well?
Who?
The ones from Kush. Or are they ruling in
Oh
Israel?
yeah. So yeah, I do appreciate there are problems among Jews, but that's not the point we were discussing. You seem to somehow suggest the people who are there are not Israel, which is not the case here. Well, read this. No. You possibly had a genuine argument before, but after we have read the next couple of verses, you don't have it anymore.
So-
do not insist you still have it.
So the fact that the ones not mentioned here are ruling, that's not a problem.
Well, here it doesn't say who's going
So
to
that's okay in your just.
But it's not a matter of me to choose. What is God doesn't say who's going to rule. No, God doesn't say that.
So why does he mention these countries then?
Well, because these have a Old Testament significance. Germany doesn't have an Old Testament significance.
No, it's because you can walk to these countries. That's the
What
point.
is your earlier your argument was Jews could not have come from Germany. Wasn't that your initial argument?
Huh?
Did you not mention that before? That they couldn't have come from Germany?
Not they couldn't. The fact that this is mentioned, this
No,
doesn't
the
mention.
question of let's stick to. I'd like to know if you at least. You could be completely wrong, but at least I'd like to see if you're sincere.
Right.
Did you not suggest that people who had come from Germany could not be Jews because
No.
they're not one of those nations?
No.
Did you not suggest?
I wouldn't have said that because that doesn't make sense.
No. Either you are changing your point.
No, that wouldn't have made sense anyway to
or
say
okay,
that.
That's good. Okay. But, okay, that's fine.
We have to go.
We have to leave.
What I
now.
said is that he doesn't mention Germany. That's what I said.
No, it does mention Germany.
But Germany,
Four corners of the earth.
No, these countries.
No, that's fine. But four corners of the earth, Judah from the four corners of the earth, that
Yes.
includes Germany. If
Yes.
you think Germany is in the world, yeah.
No, but do you hear what it's basically saying is that these countries are mentioned,
Yeah.
but then the majority end up coming from Germany. That's the whole point.
Where does it say the majority should come from here? Does it say that?
No, but why they mentioned that?
Because these are Old Testament significant nations. Germany doesn't have an Old Testament significance. And that is why God doesn't talk about Germany.
No, what
Does
is
God talk about the UK? Do you think you are an Israelite? Do you think you are an Israelite?
could be?
Well, you are in the UK. Do you live here?
I was born here.
So but it doesn't even talk about the UK.
Yeah, I
You're not
know.
part of the list.
Yeah, but I'm not talking.
No,
I'm
you're
talking.
not part of the list.
Yes,
You're
I
not
know.
part of the list.
Yes, I know, but I'm talking about these countries. So
Well, that's fine, but you're not part of the list.
yes, but aren't these
Who should care
countries?
about you?
Yeah, but aren't these countries that they could walk to?
What's that?
Aren't these countries that the children of Israel could walk to?
Could walk to.
Yes.
Is Patros? What is Patros?
I know. I think. Not sure, but I know they could walk to Egypt and Kush and Elam because that's in Iraq side.
They could.
And China.
They could walk to. They could even walk to. Can they walk to Russia? They should be able to walk to Russia. They should be able to walk.
Yeah,
to,
if they go through the
walk to all
Muslims,
sorts
yeah,
of different places.
and Turkey, yeah.
What's that Muslims?
No, they'd have to go through a lot of
No, not in
unfriendly.
the first century.
No, it's easier to walk to Egypt, basically. That's
Well,
the point.
so now, initially you began by saying, could they walk to? Now you're saying, is it easier to walk to?
No,
And
I-
then you would say, oh, is it only 20 miles to walk to? You could say, I don't know what your point is. If your point is, people who are there currently are not Jews, it's simply incorrect. And you were going to show me the passage from the Bible to suggest that was the case. That is incorrect. I do
Okay,
apologize.
but
So I
that-
really don't know what your case
But you
is.
realize that is just opinion.
What's that?
The opinion, the fact that you're
I
saying.
really need to go now.
Okay, yeah.
But good to see you.
All right.
God bless you.
Yeah.
See you later.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.